All right, welcome into Post Game Live, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers. The Patriots fall in their first game of the preseason, 20-9 to the Houston Texans. We did not see Mac Jones. We saw plenty of Bailey Zappe, and we saw a pretty good showing there from Malik Cunningham at the end of the game. Let the Malik Cunningham, let that hype train start right now. The overreactions, everything else, I'll lead the way. Tom Giles, Ted Johnson, Tommy Curran, and Ted, I'll start with you. Your overall thoughts on what you saw tonight.
Well, first off, I was a little bit surprised to see Bailey Zappe play as much as he did. Maybe not to play, but there was maybe some talk of him not even playing. If you listen to Scott Zolak on 98.5 The Sports Hub, so I was a little bit surprised to see him out there for as long as he was out there. So to me, that's a big takeaway, Tom, is just the performance from Bailey Zappe. What did you think? I will say this. I wasn't that impressed. The completion percentage, 12 of 14, a couple sacks. It just, to me, that was a nice throw to Tyquan Thornton down the sideline, but I needed to see more from Bailey Zappe, considering how much he played. I didn't see it. So that's my biggest takeaway, besides the defensive line. Of course, Keon White doing great things. Those are my two big takeaways. Bailey Zappe going out there, I think a little bit underwhelming, and then that front seven for the defense that you've been hearing about all training camp. They came out there and played. Considering the Texans didn't have a few of their starters, still they showed out the defensive line.
Patriots defense at the start of the game was outstanding. I thought that they looked great. They were on point offensively. The whole Zappe performance, I think, comes with myriad caveats, and we'll definitely delve into that as the game goes along. But I think that there is distress at a couple of different positions in terms of depth, and it showed up tonight, and I think we'll get into those as well. But those are my three big takeaways, and I think Cunningham will probably dominate some of the conversation towards the later portions of the show, deservedly so as well.
Well, yeah, he brought a spark, right? For most of this game, we're kind of sitting there wondering, all right, well, what are they really going to be able to do? And he went out there and he made plays, albeit against probably the bottom of the barrel there from the Houston Texans defensively. But, he's going to get some attention.
And I think that is the most important thing. What can we take away on August 9th from a preseason game when the Patriots offensive line is patchwork and the starters are sitting or have their helmets off? To me, it's now you've seen a quarterback who brings the dual threat to you. He's a developmental player that the Patriots actually brought in and immediately started converting to wide receiver. But it's still obvious the running game is different when you have a dual threat quarterback back there that they have to guard against. I don't care if it's the fourth quarter of the first preseason game. I don't care if it's the middle of the fourth week in the second quarter. When you have a guy who can either put it in a running back's belly or run around the edge, it freezes giant interior guys like Ted and make them have to think.
It's tough. It's tough to defend, and this I thought the Patriots running game was pretty bad tonight. The way that Malik Cunningham runs the football, it just loosens up everything for the pass and for the run. And so the Patriots, I thought their running game was really, really bad tonight. They got to get a lot better at kind of clearing holes for those running backs. But Malik Cunningham coming in there, look again, he could be he's a guy that maybe could be a change-up. He probably might be. Is he going to be the third quarterback so that you can put him in there? And if something happens to the first two, it's going to be interesting to see if he makes this team and then how they use him if he does make this team.
Yeah, and he's not just, you talk about his running abilities, but I thought he was pretty good throwing the ball tonight.
Yeah.
The one incompletion was Trey Nixon dropping the pass in the back of the end zone, but this is the touchdown, and again, the QB draw that they certainly called a couple of those, and he looked good.
You had a run like that from Tom Brady on Brian Urlacher once upon a time. Boom.
Same look.
That was Urlacher, but there's a whole different speed to it, and Malik Cunningham can do that myriad times, I would imagine, over the course of a preseason. Never mind Tom Brady doing it once in 23 years. So it adds something to your team. What becomes the question that we're going to have to answer and deal with as we move forward in the Malik Cunningham aftermath will be, okay, is he getting a roster spot as a quarterback? Do you keep him as a wideout? Do you keep him as a practice squad player? And if you're trying to get him to the practice squad and other teams see this kind of performance, is somebody else going to pluck him during the cutdown because they have to pass through waivers to get to a practice squad?
What's interesting stylistically, you guys, is to kind of look at Malik Cunningham is just the way he runs the football. Those are the type of quarterbacks that historically have given Patriots defenses
100%.
a really tough time. It's fun to watch. You see that you go, okay, look, maybe that was an 8-yard sack. No, all of a sudden it's a 20-yard gain. The problem with that is that Bill Belichick, I think, wants quarterbacks where things are on time, the ball comes out, and guys that play football with kind of a backyard mentality where they don't go to their first and second, so they just pull it down and start running. Bill doesn't like to coach that style of quarterback all that much, and it's very difficult for him to defend because it's hard to game plan for a quarterback that goes off script, right? And so it's a little bit surprising that he's never kind of really pursued a quarterback with that skill set until now. But he's an intriguing player that could probably be used on an offense that lacks that kind of dynamic playmaker.
The predictability that Bill became accustomed to under Tom Brady and that didn't really exist at times with Drew Bledsoe, who could be a gunslinger, you get used to that predictability. And that unpredictability that's difficult to defend might be, hard for you as a coach to deal with on a week-in, week-out basis, but to say, this is what will be, we're going to snap the ball on 3rd and 4, and I don't know what's going to happen, I think is hard for a micromanaging control guy like Bill to get his brain around. Bill O'Brien, however, in my estimation, is the one who has to get his brain around it first.
But he knows what
and
to
if
do
he
with those.
does, he could convince Bill.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tom, but he knows
okay.
what to do with those guys because just covering him down in Houston. I mean, if you look at the first 7 games of Deshaun Watson's career there in 2017, I mean, they had the number 1 offense in the NFL. He knows how to use those types of quarterbacks, just enough kind of a threat to run to make the RPO kind of a dangerous thing and the play action very dangerous. And so, interesting. It was good to see him get in there and showcase what he could do. Again, I just don't think Belichick at the end of the day wants to live and die with quarterbacks that pull down the ball like this. And although it's fun and exciting to watch, that's just not the style of quarterback that he really wants to go with.
All right, well, I guess then let's talk about the quarterback room as a whole, because, again, if they're going to have to make a decision, as you kind of laid out there, Curran, as to whether or not you keep, Malik Cunningham on the roster. And by the way, this is the throw I'm talking about. Best throw of the night that goes for a drop in the back of the end zone, but that's a great throw. Maybe the best throw we saw.
Go ahead, say it, Tom.
He turned his hands a little bit the wrong way.
Yeah,
easy for me to say at 55.
Yeah.
Flag football, dangerous flag football receiver, however. I'll let you know from St. Anselm. But go ahead.
Kurt, what do you make of the fact that Bailey Zappe played into the second half, into the third quarter?
He's a backup. And I'm not sure Zoe is extremely well plugged in, but when he said there's a chance that Bailey Zappe doesn't play at all, my reaction is, well, why in God's name would he not? He's a backup quarterback in the NFL entering his second year. He is not a player that you're looking to A, preserve, or B, say he's got it. So to me, you needed your backup quarterback to play. What is troubling to me about the Patriots quarterback room is that you have an adequate to perhaps good NFL starter at the top. You have an inexperienced and physically at times overmatched player who has a great mind and is exceptionally accurate and is a good leader. He's a developmental backup in my estimation. Malik Cunningham is a year away from being able to, in my guess, and it's early, to be looked at as he's going to take some snaps for us at the NFL level. So what do the Patriots need? I think they need a better, more veteran player, not Brian Hoyer light, but Brian Hoyer plus type player. Maybe a Case Keenum type, for lack of a better example, to come in, because if you have an injured Mac Jones and Bailey Zappe's in there, there are limitations to his game. And I'm not discrediting anything he did tonight. He didn't have a lot of protection. He managed the team well. They got in and out of the huddle, which is something I talked about. It has to look clean. It has to look crisp. And it did. But I do think that going into this year, the Patriots are going to need a deeper quarterback room.
Well, just for example then, if it's Case Keenum as an example, what happens? I mean, are you still carrying Bailey Zappe?
Oh, yeah.
Or,
yeah, you would.
But how many quarterbacks do you have then at that point?
Well, that becomes the question if you have, and that becomes the debate as well. If Malik Cunningham shows development, well, how much are you going to devote to your quarterback room in terms of bodies, in terms of roster spots, in terms of practice squad places? Or are you just going to live on the waiver wire all season long and say, well, if something happens to Mac, we'll definitely go get Case Keenum then? That probably is the more likely way you look at it, but I still think that the Patriots are shallow at quarterback.
That scares me a little bit because
you agree?
No, I do, but I feel like that ship's already sailed. I don't know how you go and get that type of guy at this point. I mean, I don't know. Case Keenum might be cut, and so then you maybe bring him in. Then you're bringing him in late. He doesn't know the system. I mean, you had Brian Hoyer here that did a good job, I think, kind of helping out. Mac Jones the last 2 years, and you let him go. So I just don't know what profile of quarterback that you're talking about, which I love the idea of that quarterback being here. You had him and Brian Hoyer, you let him go to get somebody in at this point. I think I'm not sure. I think he played Bailey. I think Bailey played just because they need to get him the reps. I just don't know if they feel confident that Mac Jones is going to stay healthy the whole year. I mean, you look at the way the offensive line played today, particularly against the. I think they played him more, Tom, because they really feel like they need to get him reps because. What's the likelihood of Mac Jones staying healthy when you look at this offensive line? I know that 4 of the 5 starters weren't out there tonight, but I mean, my goodness, if one guy gets hurt on that offensive line, the trickle effect that you've seen happen in the past will happen again. And so the offensive line is obviously one of the more concerning units on this team.
I think I buried my logic a little bit. I think the main reason Bailey Zappe played so long is Trace McSorley is not up to the challenge of running an offense right now for New England. He might never be. I've watched a lot of training camp with him. He's had moments. He's had far more moments where it's kind of inept. And I know that it's a patchwork offensive line, and the Patriots' regular offensive line is miles better than what we saw today. But I think that the drop-off would have been so significant, you couldn't go, hey, we'll go 1 quarter with Zappe and then 2 quarters with McSorley because the drop-off's that profound. Last year, if you remember, it was a quarter of Hoyer. You know you're getting reps. You know everybody's getting the same call. You know you might be able to make some progress. And then it was Zappe for an extended period. This year, there's a significant drop-off from 2 to 3. I'm not even sure there is a 3 that you could, with a straight face, go into the season.
Do you think they were disappointed with Zappe tonight?
I don't think so.
I don't either. I think you and I look at Zappe's performance and go, it's very underwhelming. It just, okay, 12 or 14, but 2 sacks that, and he just throwing the ball away. I didn't see anything to get me that excited. I think they probably said, well, he didn't throw an interception. He had a high completion percentage, and they can live with that. And that's a little bit troublesome that they see that. And I think Bailey, when Tom and I clearly see the limitations in his game.